From the mystery of sunken cities scattered across the globe to a new discovery that could lead to Atlantis, here are 10 mysterious things found underwater. Pavlopetri Sunken City. One of the oldest submerged cities in the world was found off the southern coast of Greece just a few years ago. Research from 2009 revealed that the sunken city of Pavlopetri covered at least 9 acres of land and was inhabited somewhere around 5,000 years ago. Scientists are claiming that the city was sunk at around 1000 BC because of earthquakes that shifted the landscape, but even after 5,000 years, the city is fairly well preserved. Scientists from the University of Nottingham were even able to create a 3D reconstruction of what the city would have looked like before it shrank. It was not a big city for sure. It was likely constructed as a smaller center of commerce for the Minoan civilization and the Mycenaean civilization. But because it was constructed so close to the beach, it's probably not that big of a mystery as to why it fell into the sea. Researchers have so far discovered at least 15 homes, large storage containers built from clay, tools, everyday artifacts, and statues. And while experts are calling it the sunken city of Pavlopetri, the truth is that they don't actually know its original name, the exact role it played in the ancient world of Greece, or why it's not mentioned in many historical texts. In all likelihood, this was a town that sprouted at the edge of the ocean, thrived for maybe 100 years, then was swept away and erased from the history books. Loki's Castle. One of the more mysterious things found underwater is a place called Loki's Castle, and it was found deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean somewhere between Greenland and Norway. Unfortunately, it's not actually the castle of the legendary Norse god of mischief. It's more of a collection of geothermal vents that look a lot like a castle, and they spew out fluids that can reach ridiculous temperatures of up to 570 degrees Fahrenheit, but within this underwater castle of sediment is the real treasure. Scientists have now found microorganisms in this place for the first time that they believe are connected to the simple cells which initially populated Earth and began the transition into complex cellular life roughly 2 billion years ago. Researchers are calling the microorganisms Lokiarchaeota, or Loki for short. They were retrieved from a couple miles under the ocean surface very near to the hydrothermal vent system of Loki's castle. The discovery is providing some insight into how exactly larger and more complex cell types, the standard building blocks for plants and animals, evolved from simple microbes. This may all sound very confusing, but we're essentially talking about the missing link between the simple microbes dominant on our early planet and the complex cells that make up all life forms. According to an evolutionary microbiologist from Uppsala University, we now know that the exact type of microbial ancestors we descended from, or grew out of. Microbial life originated on Earth somewhere around 3.5 billion years ago, but we did not have complex cellular life until 1.5 billion years later. Thanks to the discoveries at Loki's castle, now we have a better understanding of how exactly that transition occurred. Vandenberg Shipwreck. If you found yourself diving off the coast of Florida, you might stumble upon the wreckage of the Vandenberg. This amazing vessel was sunk back in 2009 so that it could become an artificial reef. It's now sitting under roughly 140 feet, 42 meters of water, 7 miles from Key West. At first glance, it looks like the shell of some great battleship. There are giant satellite dishes sprouting off the back of the ship, there's a flag still flapping in the watery currents, and now there are fish moving in where once there were men running about and shouting orders. The Vandenberg was the second largest ship ever sunk at the time to create a reef, and since then it has been the destination for lots of enthusiastic divers. Novice divers are able to check out the radar dishes, to swim along the artillery gun turrets on the old military ship, and more experienced divers can actually go into the cargo holds, exploring the elevator shafts and the hallways. This isn't really a mysterious find beneath the ocean, but it is still pretty cool. The largest radar dish on the ship was even used in the 1999 movie Virus, when a laser blew the dish right off the ship. Of course, there won't be any more lasers attacking the ship now. The giant radar dish will instead be a shelter where fish can breed and live in peace. The Yonaguni Complex. The Yonaguni complex is arguably one of the most mysterious things ever found underwater. It's located off the coast of Japan, and speculation says that the ruins of this monument date back at least 10,000 years. However, there has been some debate whether the formation was made by human hands or if it's entirely natural. It was first discovered in 1986 by divers looking for hammerhead sharks, and it was subsequently explored by a marine geologist from the University of Ryukyu in Japan. After nearly 2 decades of investigations, most scientists agreed that because of all the right angles, the strategically placed holes, and the perfectly designed aesthetics, it had human influence at some point in time. The complex consists of a huge pyramid in the center, what could have possibly been castles, some evidence of roads, and very eroded monuments. Some people are claiming this is the Japanese equivalent to the lost city of Atlantis. But the big mystery here is that if the complex was crafted by humans, who exactly crafted it? The monument itself is built of sandstone and mudstone, both of which date back at least 20 million years. It suggests that the monument was originally natural, but was then carved by people sometime during the last ice age. This was a time when what is now underwater was above land, and the location of the site was actually connected all the way to Taiwan. However, the Agency for Cultural Affairs in Japan denies that this place is a historical cultural site. Researchers and divers have made several trips to the site and claim to have found pottery and other evidence of human activity. It kinda makes you wonder what exactly it is the government is hiding. Underwater spider. If you were terrified of spiders already, wait until you meet the mysterious underwater spider that spends its whole life beneath the surface. This is known as the diving bell spider, and it breathes air yet lives underwater. It can be found mostly throughout Europe and northern Asia, and it has unique scuba diving skills that it uses to weave silk webs under the water to create a bubble filled with air. These spiders basically create their own scuba suits so that they can live underwater and eat unsuspecting people. No, they don't actually eat humans, but they do like to munch on aquatic insects. They live inside their bubbles by constantly transporting air from the surface, which they trap using the fine hairs on their bodies, and then bringing the air into their web bubbles under the water. Inside these bubbles, the spider will hunt, mate, and lay its eggs. The only time the spider goes to the surface is when it needs to replenish its oxygen. However, the spider does have a few mysteries, the first of which is that the spider actually uses its bubbles as a physical gill that it can use to exchange gases within the water it lives in. This is quite similar to how a fish's gills work. Researchers from Germany experimented with bell spiders and aquariums, and through extensive research discovered that these spiders breathe about 70% of their needed oxygen using the physical gill of their bubble. The skeletons of Ofroopkund Lake. The remote Ofroopkund Lake in northern India contains a disturbing mystery. A British forest guide first found this lake back in 1942, and ever since then, experts have struggled to figure out why the small lake is filled with hundreds of human skeletons. The lake itself is a picturesque valley, about 16,000 feet above sea level, usually frozen over with ice, and it's also known as Skeleton Lake. Over the years, a lot of theories have surfaced, but nobody is still 100% sure who the skeletons belong to or how they ended up in the lake. Back in the 40s, people originally thought the skeletons were the remains of Japanese soldiers from the war who died while crossing the Himalayas, but more recent evidence suggests that the bones are way too old for that. Some theories suggested an epidemic of disease, a mass ritual, or even a natural disaster. According to History.com, the leading theory was that a hailstorm struck a group of pilgrims, sent giant balls of ice crashing into their heads, and they ended up tumbling into the lake. There are approximately 38 skeletons inside of Skeleton Lake, and a recent study published in a Nature magazine says that there are 3 different groups of them. There are 23 men and women of Asian ancestry, 14 humans with Mediterranean ancestry, and a single individual from Southeast Asia. The skeletons were also found to be from many years apart. There are about 1,000 years separating each of the groups. This basically dispels all of the original theories, and it's only worked to boggle scientists even more. Lake Michigan Stonehenge. If you can't make it all the way to England to check out Stonehenge, you might only need to take a trip to Michigan. Recently, in the middle of searching for some sunken ships, a professor of underwater archaeology from Northwestern Michigan College stumbled upon an ancient rock complex under the waves that looks a whole lot like Stonehenge. This happened in Lake Michigan, and the stones discovered are believed to be around 9,000 years old. One of the stones even has a carving of a mastodon on it, and these animals went extinct more than 10,000 years ago. It's really making scientists question who could have possibly built the structure in the largest lake in all of the United States and when exactly they made it. It must have come from a time before there was any water in the lake, and it must have been built by an ancient civilization on the continent many thousands of years before European explorers arrived. The most uncanny and mysterious part is that it looks exactly like Stonehenge, only smaller. Why were so many different civilizations building these ritualistic rock structures in ancient times? It really is quite a mystery. Ancient Greek computer. One underwater mystery that has been boggling scientists for years is something known as the Antikythera mechanism, also known as the very first computer. It sat at the bottom of the sea for over 2,000 years before it was discovered. The mechanism was originally retrieved from a shipwreck way back in the early 1900s, and scholars are still trying to make sense of the depictions on the device. What's really unique about the ancient Greek computer is that it appears to have traces of technology that are far too modern. For example, it seems to have gears with triangular teeth like you would find inside of a clock, and it even appears to have a ring divided into different degrees just like the protractor you would use in class. When comparing it to other artifacts from antiquity, nothing as sophisticated has ever been found. To date, most scientists can agree that the mechanism was used for tracking the paths of the planets, the sun, and the moon. And of course, there are some fringe scientists who have claimed the mechanism came from an alien ship. Unfortunately, it most likely did not come from space. The mechanism is about the size of a clock, and judging by the fragments found, it was probably housed in a wooden case. After scrutinous inspections of all the interior inscriptions and dials, experts have figured out that the device was likely nothing but a very fancy calendar with a lot of moving pieces. It would have showed the celestial time of the sun and moon, along with their phases, and even the timing of lunar and solar eclipses. According to Smithsonian Magazine, researchers also believe that one of the mechanisms showed the timing of major athletic events such as the Greek Olympics. SS Gersappa. A deep-sea exploration company recovered roughly 48 tons of silver from a British ship that had been hit with a torpedo back in World War II. The name of the boat was the SS Gersappa, and it was sunk off the coast of Ireland in 1941. Since then, it sat over 15,000 feet under the ocean. To date, this is the heaviest recovery of metals ever from a shipwreck, and apparently, the company is going to be keeping 80% of the haul after expenses and after giving 20% to the British Treasury. They literally pulled up crates and crates of precious metal that are worth a fortune. The Daily Mail reported that the exploration team brought up at least 1,200 bars of silver worth roughly $37 million. The biggest mystery here is why nobody went scrounging for the silver sooner, and how many more precious vessels are scattered around the islands of Great Britain and Ireland. Lost Highway to Atlantis. There has not been much proof that the lost city of Atlantis is real. Unfortunately, it's just not a thing that has been proved. However, one of the more convincing pieces of archaeology that could have something to do with Atlantis is known as Bimini Road. It's an underwater rock formation located near Bohemian Island in the Bahamas, sitting about 18 feet beneath the surface. The road runs straight for half a mile before ending in a hook shape. The road itself is made up of rectangular limestone blocks, and they almost all appear to have been cut with right angles. Of course, they have been weathered dramatically with time, but several thousand years ago they could have looked like giant underwater bricks of limestone. Basically, this very well could have been a road that led to Atlantis. If Atlantis were as magnificent as people say, it would not be surprising to know that there was an enormous road leading to its front gates. Bimini Road is also in the right area, as there have been a lot of theories about Atlantis sitting dormant on the bottom of the ocean near the Bahamas or somewhere in the Caribbean. Do you have any opinions on these incredible underwater mysteries? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to come back soon for more awesome videos.